Hi, welcome back to Beat Goblin. The MPC commentary video from the other day did surprisingly well. Thank you so much for watching that and contributing to the discussion. But I mentioned that I will still continue to use the MPC a lot and highly recommend it because even if you just ignore the new paid stuff, it's still one of the best value devices on the market. I stand by that, and in fact, I was just casually making beats this morning and ended up coming up with something really cool that I want to show you and walk you through. So, with that being said, let's jump into it. All right, let's start off with the drums, so I'm going to mute everything else. So, there are a few things going on here. First of all, this kit right here is from my $5 sample pack, link in the description. This is a new update that I added for free to it, and this is very much directed at trap, vapor trap, lo-fi, that kind of stuff. So I'm using this kick, and I've got it sent a little bit through the soft clipper, same with this snare, layered with this shorter, tighter snare, and I've done a bit of pitch editing for both of these. Simple, straight ahead hi-hat, cross stick, all that kind of stuff. And then we've also got this element here, where the LFO is set to a triangle wave, the sync is set to a whole note relative to the tempo of the song, and I've got the destination set to pitch and pan. So essentially, as this goes, it'll bounce around in pitch and bounce around in the stereo spectrum. And so I've done note repeats, and it's a nice, easy way to get hi-hat rolls that vary over time. Similar deal here with this hi-hat. I just have this sent via LFO to panning. So we get a little bit of variation over the course of the beat, some stereo width. And then on our track mix, a very subtle limiter and then another very subtle limiter, and the MPC 60 plugin. Oh, and this clap that I sampled from my Electron Syntact. And I've cut off the attack a little bit and sent it to a big old reverb. So a fairly simple pattern. I just made it as a 4-bar pattern and then later on went in and doubled the length of the pattern. And I've just made sure to put like hi-hats and percussion elements and snares in the little pockets to build up a groove. And I started with that. Then we bring in our sample. So, you'll notice also that this kick is on the Ducker input. And so if we go to this next track, that too is sent to the Ducker. So this is another case of me flipping something from the Skyrim soundtrack. I've been on a Skyrim kick lately, and I'm very slowly trying to build up a repertoire of Skyrim lo-fi beats for a bit of a lo-fi mix on this channel eventually. And it's got like a surprising amount of really good sample material. So this is a bit from the soundtrack with this nice floaty ambience. So I've taken a chop there, and let me get rid of the processing real quick. So it's a different section. And then here, I've gone down 2 semitones, and here 4 semitones, so we're kind of inventing a chord progression out of thin air here. So already this goes a very long way towards the vibe of the track. And I've brought the volume up a bit with a limiter. I've added the granulator from the latest firmware update. So that's without. That's with. The mix turned down a tiny bit and everything up an octave. Little bit of reverb. And then the Ducker. And real quick, for good measure, let me actually show you the Ducker settings. My tendency is to over sidechain stuff, or at least that's what people tell me, so I tried to keep it subtle this time. Up next. 808. So this is just a bog standard key group program with a sample play set to one shot and everything set to monophonic. And in this case, this is a Ramzoid sample, which I use quite a bit for trap stuff. And then if we go to track mix, I just have a little bit of EQ. Just taming some low end and low mids and cutting off the really deep sub just to save some headroom. And then I just made sure that that meshes fairly well with the kick. I'm a big fan of 808 octave jumps, as you can tell. So this, more shameless self-promo, is from my $5 MPC key group pack. So that's also linked in the description. I sampled a bunch of my hardware synths, and I actually did this a while ago before now Akai releasing what are essentially expensive key group programs. Personally, I'm not like pissed off about it. Like, I'm mildly annoyed, and that's about it. But if you want to get some real cheap for some nice shimmery synths, hit up the link in the description. Helps keep the channel going. And yes, I'm aware of how opportunistic that is. Regardless, this is sampled from my JU06A, so kind of a Juno style sound. Let me solo this. And we've got some fairly similar processing to the sample. Cutting from the low end, chorus, granulator, and reverb. And notice that this is still polyphonic, so the notes kind of bleed into each other a bit, which is a sound that I just really, really like. And finally, another one of my key group programs, also from the JU06A. And what I have done is really shorten the amp envelope so we get more of a pluck. And speaking of pluck, I've got the filter envelope set to do a bit of a pluck. So let me go to track mix. It's fairly dry by itself. Cutting some lows, boosting some highs. Little ping-pong delay. And some reverb once again. And then I've kind of buried it in the mix a bit. And that is how I made this beat. If you'd like to see some more MPC One beat making, you can click or tap up over here somewhere. And if you'd like to see some thoughts on the new MPC firmware and DLC, you can click or tap up over here. I'll probably try out the FM synth on my main channel at some point. But in the meantime, I've got some thoughts on the value proposition and all that. So thank you so much for watching. I'll be back with a new video in a little bit.